Welcome to Uniquely Female Troubles. My name is Leslie Wells, and today we're going to talk about the things the cult leader of the group that I made the mistake of joining when I was 16 and didn't get out of until I was 44, what he had to say about women. His name was William Branham. He claimed he was born in 1909, but they've discovered that he was either born in 1907 or 1908. And he also claimed his middle name was Marion, but they've actually found that it was Marvin. This guy told a lot of lies, and he was just, I don't know what even to say about him. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about him right now. I'm just going to focus in on what he said about women. So, being part of anything that put women down was totally foreign to me and my family. I was not part of a family that was patriarchal. My family was egalitarian. My mom and dad made decisions together. My dad definitely did not boss my mom around, that's for sure. And my mom knew how to set limits. So, the fact that I joined this cult just shows how messed up I was inside. And I think that was a result of the essay that happened to me from when I was a child. So I did join this cult. I don't think I would have even joined the cult if it hadn't been for the essay. I hope I would have been healthy enough not to do that. But I want to read you some things that this man, William Branham, said to and about women. And at least half the people in the church, when he's preaching these things, are women. I was there. I didn't hear him preach because he died in 1965. And I didn't join this group until 1979. So, but I listened to, they recorded over 1,100 of his sermons. And a big thing that everyone in this group does is listen to his sermons over and over and over and over. So you're indoctrinating yourself over and over and over again they also transcribe the sermons that they recorded into books. So when you're reading those books, when you're listening to those tapes, you're indoctrinating yourself. So I'm going to tell you what he said about women, and I'm going to tell you the sermon he said it in. This statement blows me away. It doesn't blow me away that it's true. It blows me away that he would admit it. That, I just can't believe that. So, it's weird. It's crazy. But the first statement I'm going to read to you is from a sermon called My Life Story that was preached on April 19, 1959. And you might say, like, why are you talking about something from all the way back in 1959? That's like ancient history. And I wish it was ancient history. And yeah, he preached that a very long time ago. But the reason it's not ancient history, the reason it's current events, is because when he died, he had about 5,000 followers. Now he has, it's estimated, between 2 and 4 million followers. These sermons are being translated and sent to all different countries. These transcripts are being translated and sent to all different countries. The country that this is most popular in is in Africa. It's way more popular there than it is here in America, or the US, I should say. So, it's not ancient history. It is current events. And if I hadn't left this call, I would still be sitting here listening to this crap and saying, amen, amen, yes, that's so true. You're a prophet of God. We believed that what he said was equal to the Bible. It had the equal authority of the Bible. And there was a subset, kind of a cult within a cult, that believed this man was God. And I had heard about those people, but I had never met one as far as I know. And the people who didn't think he was God thought that was very weird. But we put him up on a huge pedestal. I mean, if you say someone's word is equal to the word of God, you're putting them practically as equal with God. So anyway, this is what he said in April of 1959. That was my remark then. They're not worth a good, clean bullet to kill them. And them means women. That's right. And I hated women. That's right. And I just have to watch every move now to keep from thinking the same thing. And he said that. He still has to guard himself from wanting to kill women. And then he would be thundering this stuff. I mean, it's been said by many people, and I agree with that. When he really got going, he sounded like a lot like Hitler when he got going on his rhetoric. And but then he would say all this stuff, and then he would turn around and say in this really sugary, sweet voice, and he's like, "But I'm not talking about you, my dear sisters." And by that, he meant the women who were living according to the rules he decided we should live by. But if we didn't do that, he wanted to shoot us. Of course, he didn't want to waste his bullets. And then in another sermon he preached in 1957 that was called Question and Answers on Hebrews. It was September 25th, 1957. He said, "The woman is a tree of death. The man is a tree of life. For the woman doesn't even bear life in her." That's exactly right. And yet in Proverbs 3:18 it says she is a tree of life. And can you tell me, if we don't bear life in us when we're pregnant and when we have a baby, can you tell me where babies come from? I guess they don't come from inside women. I don't know. I mean, he said so many things that were just crazy. And when you get to the subject of women, you would definitely think he was crazy. And he was. So in 1958, on March 24th, he preached a sermon called Hear Ye Him. And he said, "Any man that will let his wife smoke cigarettes and wear them kind of clothes shows what he's made of. He's not very much of a man." That's exactly right. True. He don't love her, or he'd take a board and blister her with it. You know that's the truth. So he actually is saying that if a man loves his wife, he'll beat her. And he's saying that if she smokes cigarettes or wear clothes that this William Branham guy has deemed not acceptable, that the proper response to that is to beat her until she has blisters all over her, beat her with a board. And I don't have this written down, but he also made a similar statement about daughters. And he was talking about sunbathing. And he said that if a daughter is sunbathing and, wearing a bathing suit and out in public, that the proper response of the father is to take a barrel slap, which is a board, and beat her. In one place he said beat her till she has so many welts on her that she can't get her clothes back on. And in another place he said to beat her until she can't get out of bed for 6 months. And I will say this, there is no evidence that he ever beat his daughters or his wife. But the fact is, when you have a whole group of people that consider you either God or a prophet of God, whose words are equal to God, and you're telling people to beat their daughters and beat their wives, there isn't a single place that anybody's found that he ever said to beat a son or any man. He only said to beat women. And he cultivated this image of himself as being this prophet, and indirectly and also directly, although it hasn't been recorded, witnesses have explained that he did this. He also cultivated his image as God. And so if you want people to think of you as a prophet and of God and as God, don't you think it's pretty irresponsible to go around telling people to beat their wives and beat their daughters with boards? I do. But that is what he believed. I guess he thought maybe beating us was better than shooting us. And especially, I guess, after you beat a woman with a board, you can still use the board so you don't have to waste it. He said that shooting a woman, we're not worth the bullet it would take to kill us. So maybe that's why he wants to beat us instead of kill us with bullets. So in 1965, which was the year he died, he preached a sermon called Marriage and Divorce. This sermon caused so many problems that I won't even go into the details of, but it caused so many problems within this group. it's really hard to explain. He unintentionally, we pretty much believe, that he introduced polygamy into this group. He was trying to justify a man getting remarried after he's divorced. And in doing that, he went so far overboard that he actually made people think he was endorsing polygamy. But he had quite a lot to say about women. And I think the rest of these quotes are going to come from this one sermon. But please don't think that this is that he said all the bad things in this one sermon. No, we have tapes starting in 1947 all the way up through 1965 when he died. And he said these horrible things about women in just throughout his ministry. So the first one I have wrote down is he said, "There's nothing designed in all creation that can stoop as low as a woman can." So nothing. There's nothing. A woman, anyway. So, okay. Another thing he said about women in this marriage and divorce sermon is she is designed alone for filth and unclean living. A dog can't, and no other female can. It's just the woman that can. So I find this very interesting because it says she's designed alone. So I guess that means in his eyes, men are just literally incapable of filth and unclean living. But yet, is that actually true? No. Everybody knows that. And what he means here, and this is a theme that comes up in the next quote that I'm going to talk about too. What he's talking about, that a dog cannot do something that a human woman can do, is he can... Let me redo the next quote and then I'll explain it. Same sermon, marriage and divorce. "Notice, there is nothing designed to stoop so low or be filthy but a woman. A dog can't do it. A hog can't do it. A bird can't do it. No animal is immoral, nor can it be, for it is not designed, so it can be. A female hog cannot be immoral. A female dog cannot be immoral. A bird is the only thing that can do it. Now you see where Satan went." And what he's talking about there is that animals, and I researched it, it's true, almost every animal, female animal, goes into heat so they can mate. And so what he's talking about here is that human women do not have to go into heat to want to have sex or to reproduce. And he is saying that that makes us lower than hogs and dogs, and that we're immoral unlike female animals. But what's so interesting to me, again, he said she's designed alone for filth and unclean living. And in this quote, he says, "Notice, there is nothing designed to stoop so low or be filthy but a woman." But there is another creature on earth that can have sex anytime he wants. That's called a man. And so since we don't need to go into heat, we are lower than a hog or a dog. We alone are designed to be filthy and to stoop so low. But a man can have sex anytime he wants to. But yet, we're the ones that are the bad ones. Okay, here is another quote from the same sermon, marriage and divorce. "Why didn't he make her like that in the beginning, like the rest of the females? Because it would be unbecoming to him. He is the fountain of all purity. That's the reason he had to let Satan get a hold of her. What he," meaning Satan, "done in the perversion such a creature would not be becoming to him, originally designed for." And this is very confusing. This guy, William Branham, he claimed in some versions of his life story that his dad died when he was very young and that he only had a third-grade education because he had to drop out of school and hunt and fish and trap so he could feed his 9 brothers and sisters, or maybe 8, I think they had 9 kids total. But the fact is, and in some of his other life stories, he tells something closer to the truth, that But actually, they have the records, death certificates, and birth certificates, and all that stuff. His dad died when he was 34. He did not drop out of high school, but he always talked about having a third grade education. That's why he talks the way he does. And a lot of people, and I agree with this, think it's just an affectation, and persona that he puts on. But I don't know of any other recordings of him not talking that way. So that's more like a theory. But that was like, he was a hillbilly. He was born in Kentucky, and he, was this uneducated hillbilly, but God used him and all this stuff. It's just ridiculous. But what he's saying is, so like, he does agree that God created woman out of the rib of Adam, like it talks about in the book of Genesis. But then he veers out of the Bible and he says that Satan designed her. So God created her. I don't even know what that means, if Satan was the one who designed women. But Satan designed her. So he created a woman, and then he gave Satan permission to design us. And the reason he did that is because it would be unbecoming of God, who is the fountain of all purity, to create something like women. Like, we would defile him. We would mess up his purity if he had to actually design us. So, and he constantly talked about how women are not part of the original creation, that we were a byproduct of a man, and basically we were an afterthought. Like, God created all the animals, then he created Adam, and then at some point he decided that Adam needed a companion, and so he took a rib out of Adam and created a woman out of it. But then, according to this man, William Branham, God did not design us. He allowed Satan to do that. And this next quote kind of explains why. Okay. She is nothing but a human garbage can. A sex exposal. That's all she is. An immoral woman is a human sexual garbage can. A pollution. We're filthy, dirty, ornery, low-down filth is disposed by her. What is she made this way for? For deception. Every sin that ever was on the earth was caused by a woman. And an analyst just from Chicago, a woman, wrote this article. The police force that they chased down in the U.S., metropolitan U.S., that, and in this part, he's claiming to quote this psychologist. It's in quotation marks. 98% of every crime that was ever did in any form in the U.S., there was either a woman in it or behind it. Now, I would like to meet the psychologist that talks in this third grade educated hillbilly language, but he translated it into his own, way of speaking, and then they put quotation marks around it, which is ridiculous. So she's nothing but a human garbage can, a sex exposal. So basically he's saying we are garbage disposals for sex. And that's why we were created, that's why we were designed, and that we were designed by Satan to deceive men. That's why God allowed Satan to design us instead of designing us himself, because I would like to know, why did God want something to deceive men with? It's so ridiculous. But anyway, but this comment down here is so hilarious. It's really funny. He says that 98% of the crime in the U.S. was either committed by a woman or a woman was behind it. So I did a little research. Of the prison population, 93.5% of the prisoners are men, and 6.5% are women. Now, either women are getting away with way big time a lot of crime, or this is a lie. It's another lie. I mean, we all know that men are more violent in general, and I'm speaking very general terms now. Men are more likely to commit crime, men are more violent. But yet, he constantly said things like that about women. And then this is the last quote, and it's still from the sermon, Marriage and Divorce. She is not in the original creation. She's a byproduct. And one thing he used to say a lot was that since women are a byproduct, that we are 1,000 times more easily deceived than men because we're not part of the original creation. So that is what we sat there and we listened to, because the preachers, so there are two types of churches in this cult. One is called a tape church or press play church. And in that church, people get together, they sing, they do what you normally do in a church. But then instead of the preacher getting up and preaching, he plays a tape by William Branham. And if he plays a tape by William Branham and Marriage and Divorce, the tape that I read you, the sermon that I read you all those quotes from, if he is playing that tape, then that's what all those women are going to hear about themselves. And all those little girls, that's what breaks my heart, is all those little girls are hearing that about what they are. And like, I didn't grow up in this cult, but I have heard from many people in the support group and also in comments that on a YouTube channel that I watch like every day, that they felt so much shame just for being female. So this thing shames you for being what you are. And it's crazy. And if you think something different than a man, they'll just say, well, women are 1,000 times more easily deceived than a woman because you're not part of the original creations. Of course you think that. They use that all the time as a weapon to discredit anything you have to say that they don't care for. The other type of church is a church where they have a preacher that preaches a sermon. But during that sermon, he constantly quotes from William Branham. In most of they're called message churches. This group is called the End Time Message. And in most of those kind of churches, the only kind I've ever been in, but I found out recently actually that there's a different kind that doesn't constantly quote William Branham all the time. I've never been in one of those. But William Branham, they will quote William Branham constantly. And some of them do nothing but quote him. They just go from one quote to another, to another, to another. And the churches I was in, they probably did 50% from the Bible, 50% from William Branham. But they do not hesitate to use these quotations about women. When you go to that church, you are lower than a hog or a dog. And all the stuff William Branham said about you. And if you believe he's a prophet, and especially if you believe he's God, then you have to believe everything he says, which is sad, really sad. And I've often asked myself, like, how did I do that? Because to be honest, I never felt like I was lower than a hog or a dog. I never felt like I was like a filthy creature that was a human sex garbage disposal. I was married. I had my husband. I never cheated on him. What's dirty about me? And I don't really know how the brain does that, to be honest. And another lady I talked to, she said that she dealt with that by thinking in her head, well, he's talking about all those women out there who don't know about the message or don't live the message, but he's not talking about us. And he did say that. He would stop right in the middle of this horrible rant and say, no, I'm not talking about you, my dear sisters, as if he loves us. He doesn't. And so I would love to hear your thoughts about this. Have you ever heard misogynistic, disgusting comments about women in your church? If you have, or if you haven't, either one, I would love to hear about that. Because thinking about the fact that he says this stuff about half the population of the world, about half of all humanity, is horrible. And the idea of growing up under this constant barrage of shame is also horrible. But I sat under that shame for 28 years, but I was not raised in that shame. And I think that really gave me a real advantage. I was never taught that being a woman was anything to be ashamed of. And I was really lucky about that. So thank you very much. And please leave this video a thumbs up. That really helps me. And subscribe to it. That really helps me too. And leave me a comment. I would love to hear what you guys have to say. I enjoy telling you what I have to say, but I really would love this to turn more into a dialogue and less of a monologue. I want to interact with you guys, but if you don't leave me a comment, I can't. So thank you very much and have a good day.